What will happen in the Washington, D.C. housing market now with Trump as president? In this video, I'm going to analyze the trends in the DC market and also do some projection and speculation about what could happen for the rest of 2025 now that we have Trump as president. But before we get to that, let's take a look at what the data is saying right now, everyone. In the Washington, Arlington, Alexandria metro area, which is a big one, it covers DC, goes down to Virginia, goes up through Maryland, prices are up 4.2% over the last year to a typical value of $568,000. You can see that this price growth in DC has been very stable over the last 12 years, oscillating between 2 and 9% a year. However, there's some big differences depending on where you go in DC. If you focus on the District of Columbia, prices are down 2.2% over the last year, and they've been going down now for 3 years in a row, while values in Fairfax and Loudon County, two of the wealthiest counties in America, are up 6% year over year. And so quite clearly there was an exodus from inner DC to the outer suburbs during the pandemic, and that's still showing up in the housing market data. Home price levels, inventory levels are all reflecting that exodus. However, I think something big might be on the horizon this year with Trump as president, because he seems intent on reducing the size of the Washington, D.C. workforce, and that will obviously have a big impact on the economy and the housing market if it happens. With Axios reporting that Trump is now offering buyouts to all federal workers, with this government-wide email being sent today making sure that all federal workers are on board with the new administration's plans to have federal employees in office and adhering to higher standards. We're 5 years past COVID and just 6% of federal employees work full-time in office. That is unacceptable. The White House expects 5 to 10% of federal employees to accept the offer, which would potentially mean hundreds and thousands of people leaving the federal workforce. Now, there's two really interesting things going on here. One is the immediate impact this might have, which is fewer government jobs in DC. Clearly, Trump is trying to make the federal workers in DC quit, some amount of them. And if that happens, it's going to have a big economic impact because there are 234,000 government employees in Washington, D.C. You can see this number has actually been pretty stable the last 20 years. However, if it goes down, that's going to mean potentially fewer home buyers, fewer renters, and more people looking to sell their homes. And so this is going to have a big impact on my long-term forecast for Washington, D.C. area real estate, right? If we see a structural reduction in government workers, that's going to mean fewer home buyers. That's going to mean more people looking to sell, which is going to mean more inventory and lower prices. Conversely, if we see these return to work mandates actually bring people back to DC who maybe moved to other parts of America during the pandemic, maybe that could increase the flow of home buyers. So there's a couple of different variables here that we don't know for sure how they're going to play out. However, if you're an interested home buyer, an investor, or realtor in DC, what you can do is track the data as the year goes on. The one thing I'm going to be doing is looking at inventory, everyone. Right now, there's 8,400 homes for sale in the DC metro. You can see this 8,400 homes for sale is down still from pre-pandemic levels. It's up a little bit year over year, but is down still from pre-pandemic levels. And as a result, Reventure app actually has a stable home price forecast for the Washington, D.C. housing market based on the current trends. And if we zoom more in, we can see this forecast varies significantly by county. So if we go to Fairfax County, our forecast is a 58. The inventory levels here are just really, really low. They're less than half of what they were before the pandemic. And so when inventory is this low, it's going to be hard for prices to go down. It's going to be more likely prices increase. Meanwhile, if we go to Loudon County, where the median household income is $178,000, there's only 348 homes for sale when there was over 800 before the pandemic, again indicating upward price pressure. But if we go to the District of Columbia, inner DC, oh my goodness, we can see inventory is now up to 2,300 homes on the market. Look at this jump year over year. It's almost as if some of the sellers in the DC housing market were anticipating Trump's presidency potentially and maybe looking to get out before the presidential administration changed hands. I mean, with inventory this high in the District of Columbia, yeah, we have a heavy downward forecast for this year. But the thing to understand, everyone, is if we go to DC real estate, the prices are still really expensive. They started going down. There's lots of inventory, but if you wanted to buy buy, say, a condo in a good part of town, you're still gonna have to pay $1 million for a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,400 square foot condo. That's $700 a foot. You got an $800 a month HOA to live at 1,700 Calorama Road, which is a good up and coming part of town. Actually, back in my old real estate career about 5 or 6 years ago, we looked at a condo deal here. We looked at funding a condo deal probably in 2018. I remember going to some condo comps back then, thinking they were really expensive. They're still expensive today. I mean, look at this, 1.25 million for a 2-bed, 995,000 for a studio, probably some type of loft, 650 grand for 800 square foot townhouse. Now, I personally happen to really like Washington, D.C. Every time I visit DC, I have a good time. I think there's lots of culture there. I think there's lots of fun things to do there. I love all the history that's there. I think the nightlife scene is amazing. A lot of good music, a lot of good restaurants. I think there's still a lot of positive aspects to living in Washington, D.C. However, DC runs off the government. 27% of the employment in the District of Columbia is government workers, which is crazy to think about. Over a quarter of all the people with a job work for the federal government or the municipal government. And that, of course, also extends out to the suburbs in Arlington and Alexandria and Fairfax County. A lot of the people who live out there commute into DC. And so the turmoil and tumult that's now coming with the Trump presidency is something that really needs to be watched. And the exciting thing actually is that you could watch the impacts by looking at the housing statistics. Because if there is really a big reduction in federal workforce and that happens soon, you're going to see it in the real estate market pretty quickly. You're going to see it in the inventory trends. You're going to see it in the price cut trends. You're going to see it in the days on market trends. And one thing I want to do for you folks here on Reventure app, which is the program I've been using in this video to show you data on the DC housing market, is show you some of the home price growth figures at a zip code level. Because one thing that's good is to dive down into your zip code and see how values are trending. And you can see here, all across DC, values are down year over year. However, as soon as we go over the bridge into Arlington, prices go up. And they're up by as much as 7% year over year in Milburn Terrace. They're up 7% year over year in Falls Church. And so, distance-wise, these locations aren't that far from each other, yet they're having very different behavior in terms of their price growth. If you go up to Langley, prices are up 8% year over year in Langley and McLean, Virginia. The typical value of a house is $1.5 million. You can see this value is around $1 million 5 or 6 years ago. It's gone up 50%. And actually, this is a zip code that stayed very stable from 2005 all the way to 2019. Prices didn't grow. And so actually, this area isn't that overvalued despite its expensive prices. It has a home value to income ratio of 6.0. The median household income here in Langley is $255,000. However, I'm just curious what's going to happen with inventory. There's only 79 homes for sale. There was 94 last year, 79 today. So the inventory is down year over year. So we're not yet seeing any type of negative impact from the Trump administration on government jobs and local housing. We're not seeing that really out in the burbs. We are seeing it potentially in the District of Columbia, DC proper. And what I want to encourage you guys to do out there, if you're an aspiring home buyer in the DC area, if you want to learn more about the housing market, or if you're a realtor who wants to help explain these trends to your clients, because I'm sure it's very confusing out there right now in DC real estate, head to www.reventure.app where you can access all this data for yourself. Home value and inventory data is free for all users if you sign up for a free plan. And then from there, you can unlock our popular data like our home price forecast, as well as our over and under valuation rate and our long-term price growth statistics for only $39 a month or $33 a month if you get that annual pass. I've been encouraging a lot of people to sign up for the annual pass recently because that allows you to check out the data over an extended period of time as we update it each month and do it at a 15% discount. So head to www.reventure.app if you want to access insights on the DC housing market now.